Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cosmic Metamorphosis. My name is Kat. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I have not been able. Oh, hey, you guys. Sorry, I got two cats fighting with catnip back here. Play nice. Yes. Sorry. Anyway, I have been off the radar for a little while just because I've been working a lot and I just haven't had time to do a video, and it's taken me so long to transcribe Alex Collier's October 7th uh, webinar. So I apologize for that. I just have not had time. Um, I did get to go to our Rock and Gem show. So I wanted to show you what I got. Um, I found a really cool smoky quartz. Isn't that beautiful? It's barely smoky, but it's really clear. And I just thought that was really pretty. It just caught my eye, and the crystals call to you. Certain ones call to you. And then I found an Amazonite with some tourmaline in there. It's really pretty. It's one of my favorite stones too. It almost has like almost a sort of a crescent moon to it. I like to look for crystals with like faces in it or certain, lots of rainbows. There was also, look at this. Some people call it bumblebee jasper, but it's actually yellow and black banded calcite. So like this big chunk, like it's as big as my hand. It's a pretty good size, and that was only like $12. So I had to get a piece because I'm so drawn to yellows too. I found a chunk of copper. Copper's really good in grounding, so I had to have a chunk of copper. I found a really cool crystal point too. It was like $3. The yellow on there apparently is like iron. And the guy I bought it from was like, "Oh, you can wash off all that iron and make it more shiny." And I'm like, "No, I like it natural like that, you know." So I got that, and then I got this really cool, almost looks like selenite, but it looks like an arrowhead or like a shark's tooth. Isn't that awesome? And then it has little pointy crystals on the back. So I just thought that was really unique. And then I got these really cool wire wrap earrings that a lady did. And they have sunstone in them. Aren't those pretty? So I think this was the most expensive thing I got, which was like they were $30. That's all handmade, hand wrapped. So anyway, and then I just wanted to let you guys know, I had a little blessing dropped in my lap last week. I had called in sick a day because um, he's been giving me every other day off, and I can't seem to get anything done. That's the other reason I haven't done a video. I haven't had 2 days off in a row to be able to get the things done I needed to get done. But I called in sick. So later that night, I had to go grocery shopping. And so I'm coming home, and my daughter and I are coming up the hill, and it was probably 8:30 at night, so it was dark. And I see these two little glowing eyes, and it was coming over a barrier. And I thought, oh, is that a baby raccoon? Or is that like a baby possum? So I stopped the car to shine my lights. And I'm going to pause this a second and I'll show you. So let me pause. And this is what I found. Oh my goodness. Isn't she sweet? Oh my goodness. I had stopped the car. We shined the lights out on the road, and she was just sitting straight up, just sitting in the middle of the road looking at us. Like she heard our car. And it's just crazy. It happened so, it was like a movie, basically. the universe gave me another kitten. So she was just sitting there looking at us, and my daughter was like, come, come, come. She got out of the car and she came running up to her. So this is our new little girl. Her name is Nori. If you watch Rings of Power on which is the Lord of the Rings series on Amazon, there's a character on there. It's a Hardfoot, and her name is Nori, and I absolutely love that character. And I thought that was the cutest little name for this little girl, and she's absolutely so sweet. So I just thought I would show that to you guys. Show her to you. Say hi, Nori. All right, I'm gonna put her back. Okay, so so now I have 6 cats. Oh my gosh, and I've got 4 of them in here with me today. So if you hear noises, it's the cats. Yeah, so now I have 6, and then I have 2 outdoor cats, stray cats that I've been taking care of too. So, which one is Bella, I call her Bella, and one is Jasper. So I kind of have 8. I am the crazy cat lady, you know. Anyway, all right. So yeah, it's taken me forever to be able to transcribe this to you. And I thought he would take a week off with his conference he had in Florida, the weekend of the 21st, and he hasn't had a weekend off. So the next one I'm transcribing is October 14th. And then he had his conference weekend, and then he actually did one on the 28th. So I am a few behind now. So bear with me. Okay, so this is Alex Collier's webinar number 167 from October 7th of 2022. And today is November 2nd already. We're already in November. Where did September and October go? I don't even know. Like, I kind of vaguely remember September, but October, I have no clue where that month went. It's gone. Like, time is speeding up and things are happening, and we're just all waiting on this big, hopefully, EBS to happen. And I will admit, like, I feel kind of, I've had my days where I've just been so reluctant and been like, nah, it's never gonna happen, nothing's ever gonna happen, we're just gonna sit in this crap, you know, for another year. Let's hope not. And I don't think so. It's coming, we just don't know when. So anyway, he says, let's start. And he says, hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. He says, listen, if we have some new people today, I want to welcome you, but we have a bit of an advanced webinar today when it comes to current stats and fire on the horizon. He says, you know, regarding everything is evolving, kicking and screaming. He says, even though the regressives, the deep state, are doing everything possible, whichever ones of them are left, to keep things the way they are and to hold on and maintain their power. All right, Bandit. See, I have these cats. Bandit, come on. Go on. You get down. Move your tail. You want out too? Okay. I'm gonna sit here. Jeez. So I have Amber and I have Salem and Binks down here on the floor. He says they are, of course, losing. He says so. They are going through a learning curve as well of what it feels like to lose, of what it feels like to be oppressed, what it feels like to be hunted. So everything they were projecting onto others has now boomeranged, which, of course, he says the Q team said would happen. It would boomerang, and now it's coming back on top of them. So they're being forced to evolve and understand what they've put everybody else through as they're kicking and screaming. He says, now, if you're paying attention to current stat, and I know this is a very advanced group and I am honored to be a member of it. He says, you're aware that things are beginning to take shape, that the things that were hidden are now coming to the surface. And for those who have been paying attention for a long period of time, you're not so surprised to see all these things come to the surface. In fact, our says, and I will consider myself part of that group, that our expression is finally, finally, what the hell took so long, right? Yeah. And then you have the middle group saying, this can't possibly be true. This can't be real. And then you have the last group, which is actually the smallest percentage of people who still can't see anything. He says, they're like, what are you talking about? What conspiracy? Biden what? Obama what? Hillary Clinton? Oh, come on. She's wonderful, right? You still have that group. Absolutely. Head in the sand, right? Yeah. Wherever we are, wherever you are on that scale, the important thing to remember is that the reason everyone is going to see this is because everybody is supposed to see it. Everybody is supposed to understand that if you are not consciously aware of your moment, if you're not consciously aware of the things going on around you, and I'm talking about a 360 degrees, if you're not paying attention to world events, then you don't know that you've been captured and the experiences that you're having. Turn it. Sorry, I know there's some of you that says that you can't hear me, and I keep meaning to order a microphone so it's better volume for you. So hopefully soon I can, if I get some money, I'll have to tell you about that too. Anyway, um, he says, those things going on around you, the laws that are being made without your knowledge and your permission, are only there to strengthen the cage around you. Now, these cages were built for everyone. He says that twice, for everyone except 1% of the world's population. So as this thing evolves, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, as these things continue to evolve and people in all categories, the three categories I just mentioned, we're all going to get uncomfortable. Those that have been paying attention will get uncomfortable, but you will know why things are happening. And he says you'll have a sense of faith and a sense of hope that once we get on the other side of this fear generating reality, we're all going to find real, genuine peace and brotherhood. Those in the middle group who are just now waking up, they're going to be even more uncomfortable because they don't understand everything that's going on and they have to catch up. Those in the third group who are not paying attention at all, they're going to get even more uncomfortable and they're going to freak out. And that could be an issue because people who freak out, people who are overwhelmed with fear, do really stupid shit, he says. And that's going to be an issue. He says, now, and he kind of laughs and he says, I'm not quite sure how to start this next point. Let me just start with this, okay? None of this is written down. He says, I go through this in my head and then I get help sometimes in organizing it. There are all kinds of dates being bantered about, right? Please don't pay attention to them, okay? This is not on a calendar. A clock is not running these ops here. He says, this operation, you have direct involvement by the Alliance and others. He says, they're horrible when it comes to telling time, okay? Or doing things on a timeline. But situational awareness and situational intervention is their forte. That's what they do. They look at events and they know exactly where to be ahead of time to make sure it doesn't go beyond a certain point. Now, he says the nuclear warfare porn ratchet is kicking very much into gear. There's still a significant population in the world that haven't either gotten the news or it hasn't actually reached them yet or sunk in. He says, and a lot of that has to do with they're aware that the media lies all the time, and therefore they're not taking any of this seriously yet. As this scenario is being ratcheted up, and it will be, they're going to take this to the top. They're going to take this as far as it will go. And some of the technologies that have been reverse engineered by extraterrestrials, he says, wait, let me back up. Some of the technology that has been reversed from alien vehicles, he says, that's not been on display yet, will be. And as this thing gets higher and higher and higher, I want all of you to remember this. Project Bluebeam says it can make almost anything appear real. Project Bluebeam. I haven't actually ruled it out yet, and that is a spectacular piece of technology that they haven't used yet. And when things appear to be at their worst, and things are in the air, or something has occurred, and the media is showing you this horrible scene, I want you to remember Project Bluebeam, because the visual will be there and it will be spectacular. He says, spectacularly horrible, but you will not have the second, third, or fourth secondary proof that it's real. Those won't be there. He says, heat, wind, radiation, those won't be there. I have absolute confirmation that there's no way they will allow a nuclear weapon to be detonated. I've said this in previous videos. I've always felt like they won't allow that to happen. So I am 100% positive and sure and feel that don't worry about a nuclear event. It ain't gonna happen. They're gonna make it look like something went off, but nothing will have gone off. It's just not gonna happen. In fact, he says Mornay insinuated that I should look at the idea there are no operational nukes on the planet at all. He says, so please keep that in mind, that what we are seeing, because it's been telegraphed, is a movie. And the whole point is to wake everybody up to the criminality that has been running this world and what it was that we were going to do to all but 500 million of humanity. That's the point of all of this, is to try and get as many people on one page to understand what the rulership on this planet was doing. Another way of saying this, he says, is getting everybody's attention. They absolutely need everybody's attention, because what comes after this involves all of humanity, and they absolutely need our attention. They need our focus, because we're the ones who create this reality because of how they were able to corral and trap and get us to focus on a matrix of their making. We were actually creating the driveway that would take us to that end result they planned for us. We were in the bus driving down the road, he says, that they paved for us to our own demise, completely unaware of what was going to happen until we got to the last stop. Then, of course, it'd be too late. So, when you see the fire on the horizon, I would like you all to think Project Bluebeam. It says, now, let's move along from there. The uncomfortable part is the fact that all of the political, social structures, monetary structures, and systems that we've all been using, religious structures, with the possible exception of Buddhism, it says, is going to collapse. It says, now, there's no other way to say this. other than the fact that it is all coming down. And there's a period of time, even just a few moments, where we're not going to be sure of anything. It says, now, I'm bringing this up specifically because there's a lot of chatter about Nisara Gasara, about RV of currency, whether these events will occur, and they're going to occur, but it isn't going to happen until the old system is done or has collapsed. And when you know it's about to collapse, that it's absolutely imminent, is when every country on the planet is put into martial law. It says now, that could happen in November, it could happen in December, could happen 2-3 weeks from now. No one knows, and they're not going to telegraph it. This is a war between good and evil, but it's there. The pieces are either already in place or other pieces are being put into place as well. In other words, when all the pieces are together and they are put where they need to be, and the pieces that they're waiting for, such as Starlink, are up and fully operational, then the pieces attached to Starlink are turned on. They're implemented. The same will be for military rule in other countries. And when he said that, it reminded me, I was like, oh, yeah, because I've been seeing for years, because my eyes have been open for so long, for probably the past 6-7 years, there's been articles about other countries' militaries training with our military. And I always thought it was funny back then, and it all makes sense now. Hence, this is why you're seeing all these militaries doing training exercises with our government, with our militaries, not government, but our military. And because they're training together, because there's going to be a specific way of taking out these people. So, makes sense now. It says, now, things will be uncomfortable because of what they have done to the food. I want you to understand that the militaries around the world have been storing food, that they have their own storage of food. We will get past that. When the medical industry, the pharma industry comes down and collapses, there's going to be a lot of people who will be terrified, because what do you do about your medications? It says, well, the fact of the matter is the best thing that could happen is you get off your meds. And that's one of the pieces that's being implemented as we speak. Is there is a transitional thing going on around the world that involves not only sound and color healing technologies, aka med platforms, healing tables, etc., etc., etc. And as you know, if you follow me, they have removed my med what you sleep on video. They actually took 2 more off, I think last week. So YouTube has been taking off my videos. Okay, I've had 2 strikes. That's another reason you haven't seen my videos, because I haven't been able to download new videos. So I did make a second channel, Cosmic Metamorphosis. It's run together, #2. So that is my newest channel on YouTube. But I also added a link in the upper corner of my banner for BitChute. So please go to BitChute and watch too. If you ever don't see videos for a while, either try my second channel or go to BitChute from now on. They keep censoring even my comments. Like I'm not getting all the comments. I'll click on a comment and like it won't even give me a comment. It'll say I have comments, but then I can't pull them up. So it's best to email me if you have questions. And like I said, I don't always get to them right away, but eventually I do. So anyway, I just wanted to let you guys know that. He says those things are already being shipped to countries to help. So he says, so that the transition can move from the pharma industry to that type of healing, healing that has been around for 1,000 years, literally 1,000 years, probably longer. It says those pieces are still being moved into place, which is why this hasn't happened yet. The electrical grids, he says it's interesting that the equipment that Nikola Tesla built 100 plus years ago in many countries of Europe, and he laughs and he says, here in Colorado Springs, these countries that have this technology are in the process of getting ready to turn it on. He says they're working on everything as we speak. Now, will that be everywhere? No, because that equipment wasn't built everywhere. It says, but things will move relatively quickly because as these things begin to roll out, it says, I'm getting a little ahead of myself now. He says, so let me jump back. So the energy piece, he says, we will still be going back to fossil fuels for a short period of time. The electricity generated, says just simply the solar energy that could be stored today for planet Earth would actually run the planet for about 4 hours. He says that's it. Just 4 hours. He says it just isn't there. The technology isn't there yet. It may not be there for some time, or we can adapt and go to the Earth energy frequency, and then we don't have to worry about it. It says, but again, we're not there yet. It says, let's just be completely realistic about where we're at and why things seem to be taking a long time. And you know, the agenda of the deep state was to push all these technologies. He says, and then, we can't possibly do that because there's too many people. He says we have to get rid of the people, is basically, he says, what they're saying. We've got to get rid of the people. There's too many in the population in order to do this, in order to save the planet. He says, ladies and gentlemen, planet Earth is going to survive another 4.5 billion years. And he laughs. And he says, okay, all that's bullshit. It's always been bullshit. And a lot of people go to the science. The science. You want to know the true science? He says, follow the money. Okay. Those guys, says Cliff Hyde did a video on the peer review journals, how they're having to strip thousands of articles and peer reviews because of bribery. It was all a lie. Everything they've been telling us has been a lie to drive us down this road, to our own demise. Because in their opinion, we weren't worthy. And this had nothing to do with us. It says this had absolutely nothing to do with us. This had to deal with them. It says so. The electrical piece, the energy piece, that could be ramped up relatively quickly. The militaries of the world, most countries are looking at being under martial law, especially in the West, for approximately 2 years. Yeah, this is another reason like a lot of my videos are getting banned with Alex's information because, yeah, of the things he says. So I'm going to say it even though he doesn't have a YouTube channel. But as you see, I'm being banned for his information. Unbelievable. Now, when we think of martial law, we think of everything being shut down, etc., etc. Says that is not necessarily what's going to happen, at least here in the West. Says we will be under martial law in that the military is going to militarize or deputize local law enforcement at all, so that everyone is working as a cohesive movement. Remember a few years ago when they deputized a bunch of National Guards? Yeah. Okay. He says this will be done to get rid of the rest of the deep state, to end drug trafficking, to end human trafficking, and to capture all those involved in drug or human trafficking and deep state. While that's happening, we, the citizens on a local level, will be working together because we have to. working together to rebuild our constitutional republics. This has to start on a local level first. Then it goes to a state level or a province level before it goes to a national level. Because as these things happen and come down, we're all going to need to adjust to the idea that we have to rebuild everything from scratch. And we have to participate in rebuilding everything from scratch. This is going to be on us, we the people. Oh, I did get a sticker for the back of my car window that says we the people. So just like it was in the 1790s and early 1800s here in the United States, as it was in Australia, as it was at one time. He says, well, England's almost always been under a monarchy, but you guys are ready for this. He says, you're ready for this because you guys, out of anybody, are clear on what it is you don't want. Australia may be very much the same way, but in the remote areas of Australia, they've been pretty much running things by themselves anyway. Yeah, the Aborigines, yes. Says so the rest have to do that. And the issue for a lot of people is there's not going to be a voice in there's not going to be a voice in the sky telling them what to do. You're going to have to come up with that yourself. You're going to have to sit down, get quiet with ourselves, and we're going to have to figure it out. Says I have these talents. He says, these are the things that I'm passionate about. How can I participate? Where can I contribute my talents, my skills to assist in rebuilding our countries? That's the phase that's coming. And we're looking at starting that after the first of the year, in all probability. So it's important to know this, to begin the idea of trying to figure it out. It says now, for all of these things to work in unison, for humanity to move into gear, to step up, to begin to rebuild our world the way we want it, using common sense. We can't be in survival. That's a very, very interesting piece of the equation, because when you're in survival, it's a real challenge for everyone. And I've said this before in my previous videos. Nothing major is going to happen, especially here in the US, when people are going to work every day. Okay. You have to have a shutdown, kind of like at COVID when everyone had to stay home. That's when people started waking up and they were like, oh, I need to research this. I need to start looking into this. Is this true? Is this when people have to go to work to survive, to buy food for their family, to pay their bills, their electrical, their cell phone, their water, their car bill, pay for gas, medical, like all that stuff. When we're in survival mode, and that's the mode I've been in lately, that's why you haven't seen me. It's money, 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 money. And that's all we can think about is I have to make money so I can pay these bills so I'm not shut off. Okay. When we have hopefully some kind of martial law for the good and people, not all people are going to work, then let's hope they can sit back and go, hey, this is what we need to be doing. This is how we need to move forward. Because, yeah, when you're in survival mode, nothing else matters. Nothing. You're just tunnel vision. I just have to survive day to day, right? And I'm telling you, it's getting so hard for me. So hard for me. And I'm sure it is for a lot of people. I don't want to go to work anymore. I literally have to force myself to get in that car and go. Like, I just don't want to do it anymore. Things are changing, frequencies are changing in my life. Like, I feel like it's such a waste of my time to go to work, and the only thing that keeps me a little bit going is because, okay, well, I need to be there because I need to help other people. I need to shine my light and give a smile to someone who's maybe having a bad day. Like, that's how I have to look at it. But it's still getting very, very, very hard to do any everyday thing, even for me. Grocery shopping. I read this from people's Telegram pages all the time. Like, they just don't want to do anything anymore. Even your hobbies that you used to love, like, they're not there anymore. Like, we're moving out of this third and lower fourth dimension, and we're getting into these higher ones, and these things that we used to love are falling away. um so yeah, it's very, very hard right now to just keep going every day. I have the faith and the hope that, we're seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. We're seeing things happen, and eventually it's just going to flip overnight. So anyway, he says, now all the technologies that have been suppressed forever are going to be introduced. Now, a lot of that technology, he says, that we don't have will be surfacing. Says the deep state spent all this money on building it, creating it, hiding it, using it only for themselves, using it for their space platforms, etc., etc. Says all that technology is not only going to be coming up, but is also has to be built for civilians. So this is going to create opportunity for individuals, small businesses with a specific expertise and other types of abilities to pull these things together and to begin the process of building and manufacturing these things in each of our own countries. Yes, so any kind of like manufacturing is gonna be huge. Um, yeah, if you're into manufacturing and you're a machinist, you're an engineer, all those things, like any part of that manufacturing industry, it's going to explode because they're going to need people to build. And there aren't a whole lot of machinists left in the world. It's kind of fallen by the wayside. So we're going to need those type of people to help build new things. So anyway, he says, such as Tesla energy platforms as well, so that we can build them in all different places around our countries. It says, coming up with the components, finding the components, assembling the components. It says the hardware, the minerals, the alloys that are all needed for that to build these things. The healing platforms, which I couldn't be more excited about, frankly. He says, me personally, he says, the work involved in that is going to be absolutely amazing. And to build these platforms, everything has to build and supplied for. He says, yes, we're going to have models that come out. Yes, there'll be many distributed around the world, but it isn't nearly enough. He says, we're going to need to build millions more of these platforms, whether it's energy platforms, healing platforms. He says, food, we're going to have to regrow food. We're going to have to go back to old time farming. We're also going to have to, I just got chills. What did I say about us all getting property? And I have that dream about we're going to be given property. And I saw a little something on Telegram, a little blurb the other day about people getting property so that we can grow our own food. Um, yeah, we're also going to have to look at areas, especially in the northern hemisphere, where they have prolonged winters. Taking a look at where is it that we can grow food. He says, for example, shopping malls, instead of flowers in the shopping malls, add more plant boxes and grow crops. He says, and those would be handled by local farmers. They would be the ones managing that, and everybody would be on a type of system where everyone gets a piece. everybody enjoys everyone's shares. But that's just one place. You have other warehouses. You have warehouses that are empty, but could be converted in a month or so into being able to grow food. He says, he says, marijuana growers, hemp growers, they've got the science down. He says they've got it nailed. He says because they've had to figure out and be creative as to how to grow their product anywhere it couldn't be found. So they're really good at this. And these guys could step forward and say, okay, look, you want to do this, you want to do that. Okay, well, here's the structure you need. And in order to make this happen really quick, he says, so that's an experience. He says, not that I'm promoting marijuana growers. That's not my point. My point is that they have an experience of being able to do this on the fly. That's right. And get really creative in basements, in caves, containers. He says, they've been able to manage this. He says, the fact that they've been able to manage this is something. He says it's quite remarkable. So the northern hemispheres will be growing foods indoors during the winter months and outdoors when they don't have to. This way, we constantly have our own food supply. We're not going to put ourselves at the mercy of corporate food conglomerates and just-in-time delivery, which clearly doesn't always work. And we're going to experience that here for a brief period of time this winter, where we're just not going to be able to get some things. He says weather modification, yes, it does exist. Yes, they can make it rain. Yes, they can make it snow. Yes, they can make it sunny. So they just have to own up to it. And yes, they can create earthquakes. I saw a whole program on it. It had to have been the Discovery Channel, and it was years ago. But now it's just coming out in the open more and more. Okay. He says this drought that we're having, it's been manufactured. It was being manufactured by the deep state, by the global dark cabal, right? Right? To force us further down that road where we would have to comply or take the chip or surrender our guns if we wanted to eat, because they were driving us down this road to oblivion. It says all of that will be shared with the planet. It's very well documented. He says, so there's a lot of things going on in the background that a lot of folks don't see. All of these things have to be put in place. The fail-safes, the logistics of making sure we have everything in place to make it so that as the dominoes fall, something comes up in its place. Because the last thing we want is global chaos. So please understand, we're all going to get uncomfortable. But at the other side of all this, not only are we going to be free, I mean actually, genuinely free, but we are all of us going to participate in the creation of our new reality. And that new reality involves a higher consciousness, a higher awareness, higher technology. It's also going to accompany more self-awareness, more self-healing. Hey, baby. Nice. Yeah? Do you want out? Let me let him out. Come here. You want to say hi? You want to say hi? Which one are you? You're Binks. This is Binks. Hello. Hello, Binksy. You want out? Sam, you're in the catnip. Okay. Let's see. More of not only an integration of the planet, but with the Earth herself, and also with our solar system. There is going to be an expansion of knowledge of what's real and has been real. so that every single one of us has the ability to know what the truth is. It says it'll be up to the individual to seek it, to want to know, but it is in fact going to be available, because everything we do now as the adults is setting the foundation for future generations to follow. Now we're going to get assistance from the Alliance of potential views of what our future could be. There isn't just one. He says there's multiple, and we can choose one or all of those things. He says that's the purpose for them wanting to show us. They want to know what we're going to do, we as a civilization, okay, as a holistic compendium of human beings from Terra, what we are going to do when we're not being manipulated. This will say a lot about who and what we are. It says there is no right and no wrong answers. There is the question, though, what is it that they want, meaning us? And in order to know that, one has to know themselves, and there's no excuse not to know ourselves. And again, there's no right or wrong answer. The one major rule that applies to all of us is to do unto others as you would have them do to you. Or another way of saying it is, you get what you give. So as things come down, things will surface in our communities. And I realize it's 500 people, but there were 500 people or so on his webinar. So he's saying, I realize it's 500 people, but in your communities, what is it that your community does? What type of work or manufacturing or wayfares have your communities done in the past? Is that knowledge still there to do it, to contribute? Each country is going to be left to its own devices for a period of time. In other words, and this is going to affect every single country. There's not a single anything that's going to be exempt from this. He says whatever political structures they have are all going to come down. Yes. Whatever financial system that they've been using, that's fiat, is going to come down and it's going to go away. And as I've told you before over the years, this will be the last currency system we will use. This one we're putting in place, says, before we transition out of the monetary system, and we have to learn how to do that. And the only way to learn to actually do that, says, well, it's not the only way. We could try to go cold turkey, but that would be a complete disaster, is to listen to those who have lived without one for centuries, for decades, for millennia, who have never used one, or those who have and have figured out how to drop it because they were stuck in the old Orion system as well, and they became free. Said, so there's a lot of knowledge that can be shared with us, that we can take and we can talk about and we can discuss and we can then figure out. It says, where do we go from here? How would this apply to us? How would we apply it here on Earth? Can we even do that? And as I'm reading this, I just watched a video from the Cottage Fairy on YouTube, and she was saying she went to it was kind of like I guess like an antique dealer type of place, kind of like a flea market, I guess. But she said there was no money allowed; that they had to barter with everything, and I just thought that was so cool because we've talked about that before, me and my friends, and we're like, wouldn't that be great to be able to just go and barter and like, here, I made this vase, or hey, I crocheted this and I'll trade you this for that, and you don't need money. That's how these civilizations and off-world civilizations, that's how they live. They don't know a monetary system. There's no slave system. You just barter with each other. So won't that be interesting? It says, but the whole idea is to plant the seed of an idea of what to do, where to go with this. Once we get past all the fear, we are on our way. We are absolutely on our way, and what's coming. This event is about that. It is not about the end of the world. It is not Armageddon. I do not expect a second coming. He says, you are the second coming. You are the second coming. He said that twice. These things I do, ye shall do greater if ye have faith. Absolutely. Absolutely, Alex, right? Okay. All we have to do is own it. And he says that twice. All we have to do is own it. We just have to own it and go ahead and do it. And there's a lot, he says, a lot of smart people on this planet. There really are. A lot of experience, a lot of knowledge. We have a lot of people who have done things or know things and have never said a word to anybody because they were in projects, Black programs, special access projects, and I'm talking around the world. And they have a knowledge, a skill set, but they've always been neutral or a white hat, and they will be free to come forward and share this knowledge and their experience of how things work and what they've learned. Hi, Amber. Says what's real, what isn't, etc., etc., etc. Says, my intention here is not to rattle the cage, but to make you aware of what's coming. This big event that's being manufactured is being manufactured to take down the old world in front of everybody so that everybody knows it was bullshit. He says it was fucking slave. He says it was a fucking slave, a jail for all of us. It was a prison. It was a prison planet, like Alex Jones says. It's what it was. We were the inmates and we didn't know. But fortunately, there's a group of men and women around the world who stepped up and said, this ends now. We draw the line. And whether we get a chance to know all those individuals who, if we get a chance to know all of those individuals, who they are, who are Terran, he says, I don't know, but I truly thank them for their service with all my heart, because I know how hard it is. I can only imagine what they've gone through being here on the surface and being out there. And having to work or walk the two worlds. To not being able to share with their families what they know, or for those who don't have family because they spent most of their time up there, to long for family, how difficult that must be. And when you're in a unit or you're part of a crew, that becomes your family most of the time. But that's not always the case, and there is nothing like standing on a beach watching a sunset. There's nothing like sitting very quiet in the forest, feeling the sun and the wind on your face, and hearing an elk bugle in the background, or the squirrels or the chipmunks scurrying through the leaves. He says, there's just nothing like it. You can't get that out there. Out there, meaning in space. Owning a bunch of dogs, he says, owning a bunch of animals that absolutely love and adore you. I don't think they're doing that on starships. He says, they gave up a lot so that we have to be very diligent. We have to take this very seriously. We cannot fuck this up. We just can't. He says, now, as we form new governments or whatever it's going to look like, says we can be working with the military because we do not want the military to run the show. He says when their mission is over and they've cleaned house as much as they could, With the assistance of humanity, it would be beneficial for humanity for them to then step down and resume their normal duties of protecting the boundaries of a country. Should it even be necessary at that point, they'll probably be around for some time, probably several decades. But we the people are the ones that have to run our world, not a small group of anybody. It has to be we the people. The United Nations needs to be dissolved, and we need to come up with another way to communicate with each other, another forum, another structure that is more real, more authentic, that will not and cannot be controlled and manipulated by any outside interference or higher authority that we deem a higher authority. To become totally self-confident and free, to unconditionally be responsible for oneself without being coerced by some higher authority. This is where we need to be. Some of you are already there, and I commend you. That needs to be taught. That needs to be expressed. Children need to grow up knowing that that's okay. That's that it is perfectly normal for them to know their strengths, know their power, and to exercise it in a benevolent way. He says, we're extremely unique here, folks. We are extremely unique, and it is not an accident that the other 22 star nations were freed before us. It is not an accident that the Dark Ones came here. This was the last outpost. We were the gem. Not that we're better, but that we were the gem. They absolutely did not want to surrender Earth or us up. They didn't want to give it up, which is why they fought so hard, and they're still doing um, their bullshit. He says the ones that haven't been corralled yet. Bastards, right? Good God. Says, and I'm not referring to the extraterrestrials, I'm referring to humans, hybrids, that are here. They're terrified, and they have every reason to be, and they absolutely deserve every second of terror. He says they do. They deserve it. It's spades, I think is what he says. I was asked to go over this with you and to outline some things that are going to be going on. There's going to be those of us here in America and Britain, we're going to take some shit from other countries. And a lot of things are going to be said. There's going to be a lot of anger directed at us because of what our governments have done and our intelligence networks have done to other countries. Even though it wasn't us that did these things or knew that these things were actually occurring, we're going to have to stand up. We're going to have to apologize to the rest of the world for what our government did in our name. And the faster we do it, the more sincere we do it, the faster the anger will dissipate. We can all move forward. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about technologies that are going to be surfacing that have been hidden from everybody, including ourselves, and how they could have helped and changed humanity for the better, but they were suppressed and in some cases used against us. One of the most disappointing things is going to be the science platforms. So much of it that we've been taught is absolute rubbish and bullshit. Now, I'm probably gonna frost some heads here and light your hair on fire, but the whole climate crisis, it was all manufactured. All they did was cook the science. And the real science proves that, not the fictitious programs and fake modeling that they did on computer. Real science shows it's cyclical. It happens all the time. Some events are thousands of years apart, hundreds of years apart. It happens. Earth is a living being. It's connected to a living star. We are connected to the star and the earth ourselves. He says, shit happens. We go through changes. It's just the way nature is. And whether you're here, whether you're in Sagittarius A, whether you're in Sirius A, B, C, or D, Pallades or Baroni, he says, whether you're in Aldebaran, it doesn't matter. Life deals with change, swings with nature. Anything that's connected to a star changes. Things happen, but we always adapt. We always have adapted. And there's going to be a lot of anguish and anger about it. And there should be. That's going to be very righteous anger. These people did all this shit for money. They did it for money. Paper and ink. Paper with pictures on it, as Visayas used to call it. And he kind of chuckles and he says, okay, we cannot make the same mistakes. We will know at the end of all of this what we don't want, and that's a repent of all this shit. And, oh, that's a repeat. Sorry. And that's a repeat. We don't want a repeat of all this shit. And I want to remind you that these people implemented the genocide of the human race. They had implementations of their plan to do this. It shows their true intent. We all need to sit with that. And when we look at our children, when we look at our grandchildren, we look at our neighbors and other family members that are pregnant and have a child coming into the world, or have just arrived to bless us. He says we have to look at this and truly understand how close we were, so that we can appreciate this new opportunity to change the world forever, to make it better, to set it back on its true course. He says, now, for those of you who are just deers in the headlights, he says, the only thing I can say to you, if you don't understand this and you really begin to struggle with it, and I'm not necessarily talking about those here, but I have no idea where these videos or webinars go, I never did, is that you are connected to Source. You're connected to God. You're connected to Creator, to Great Spirit, isness, whatever term you're comfortable with. Seek that presence. Know that frequency, and you will find the guidance you need. It says you will be given the inspiration you need to move into a particular direction or not. Earth is not your first lifetime. God, I know it's not, and that's why I'm tired. I think that's why a lot of us are tired. It isn't for any of us, he says. It's one of many, many lifetimes, and even if you don't remember those lifetimes, or you think, God, Collier, you're crazy. I've been called that before. He says, I look forward to you being as crazy as me. I really do, he says. The whole point is we want you empowered. We need you empowered, okay? We're not afraid of your strengths. We're not afraid of you being empowered. We need you to be empowered. We need your strength. We want you to remember so we can all become a race of leaders. A race of leaders. Says, well, I've probably gone on about that long enough. Something that we were talking about is James is doing a search. He says, I guess on Bing, DuckDuckGo, if you do a search for Alex Collier or alexcollier.org, there's many connections on the first page on Google. There's one mention on page 3, and it's because it's Google. I see that as a badge of honor. You know they're trying to suppress the information. They've always pretty much always done it for quite a while. But at this particular point in the show, that's going on here. He says, I'm in really, really good company with other people, other conspiracy theorists. But the truth is, there are no longer any conspiracy theories. There really aren't. He says, they've all come true. They're all here in our face now. So we can drop the word theory and we can drop the word conspiracy. We can let those things go. He says, look, let me just say this one more time. We're looking for sky events. That's what they keep telling us. Project Bluebeam. It's an amazing piece of technology, and we all know they're dying to use it. And he laughs and he says, there isn't a piece of technology we haven't used, okay? Um, I know they've tested this a few places, but they want to do a big show. He says, this will be the big show. I absolutely believe. uh, the A's, when they say a nuclear weapon will not be allowed to be detonated or a nuclear bomb. It says, now, I'm not sure about a dirty bomb. A dirty bomb is usually the cap or the ignition switch for the nuclear weapon. What they do is they release the radiation from that cap, from the trigger, and it can radiate um, up to, I can't read my writing, basically 20 square miles. It can radiate it, and it can make folks real sick. It can also kill. I'm not sure about something like that. It could be that they try to release something like that and they use blue beam to make it look like it's a real weapon and try to blame it on either North Korea, Russia, or someone else, Iran. He says, you know, these people are so desperate. They're so crazy. And Putin's calling them out everywhere. Good for him. You know, the Russian people have experienced a lot from the Khazarian mafia. They have suffered a lot in the Nazis. He says, okay, JP, let's do some questions. I've probably talked too long already. So first question. See, this is a long one. First question, why can't the White Hats not just simply destroy the HARP system? Very cold winters has been predicted this year here in Europe with highest gas prices ever. Hurricane Ian apparently is a product by them. They're spraying chemtrails like idiots in the last days. Thank you for your being. And Alex says, you know, he says, that's an excellent question. He says, you know, a lot of this technology, HARP system for one, has multiple purposes. If it can manipulate weather, it can also control weather. It can also be used as a defense, a shield against meteorites and other physical bodies maybe coming towards the planet. It says, now let's go back to the actual creation of HARP and understand that it could very well be the initial implementation and construction of HARP was done by a group of scientists and engineers who did not have information regarding the alliance because so much information has been compartmentalized. They did not realize there were platforms in space that we had, that the military had, that could remove a threat of a meteor or an asteroid. It says they didn't know. And one of my favorite lines in a movie is from the movie Contact. Oh, I love that movie. I've seen it so many times. Where they build the chair. And when the chair is blown up, there's a second one that was built. And the guy says, why build one when you can build two at twice the price? That's how governments think. They've always thought that way. So that's probably the logic when they built HARP. There are more than one harp. There are several harps around the world, by the way. He says, so it could be that that's an activated oh, and actuated something technology. See, you can't read my writing. Oh my gosh. And maybe they will, but to take it down and dismantle it requires very specific expertise. You can't just go in and bomb it. So maybe that's in the cards. I don't exactly know. Or could that platform, can it be converted into something else to generate electrical power, upgrading it to Tesla specs and use it to generate electricity over 1/3 of the Northern Hemisphere? He says, see, we just don't know. So there's a lot of things that can happen with this technology. If it was built for nefarious purposes, then it will be dismantled. It will be completely taken apart and it'll be gone. But if there's another side to it, why can't you upgrade it and use it for that? Like I said, to generate electricity. He said CERN has multiple uses as well. One that's rarely talked about, and I've been hesitant to talk about, is the fact that it can be used for time travel. And I bet that the Alliance has already been given the information of other uses for it. Excuse me. Several years ago, Mornay suggested that it could be used if Earth had to alter its rotation around the sun, around our star, that CERN had the potential for the planet to move itself, to jump from one place to another. Not huge, but just a little bit. It says, for example, our sun is going through a hydrogen process. It's converting itself. It may be necessary for the Earth to move itself a little bit further away to alter itself from the sun in the future, to alter its distance from the sun just a little bit. So this would, of course, extend our calendar, our rotation around the Earth, if we continue to measure things that way. And I say that because extraterrestrial races measuring things very different to the way we do it, and would make sense that we would adapt to what the rest of the galaxy is doing, as opposed to being the Lone Ranger and not doing it at all and continuing to not doing it right. He says that makes no sense. But that's a conversation for a later time. We'll have to see. A lot of technology, such as HARP and CERN and other things, stargates. This is all technology that was reverse engineered from more advanced technology that was brought to the planet. So if there is no benevolent use for it, it will be dismantled. But if there is, then we have to visit that. But us as the citizens of this planet have to know what that is. We have to make ourselves part of the decision-making process, okay? We have got to do that. We have got to stand empowered and say, wait a minute, we are the ones creating a reality here. We will be a part of the decision-making process. End of story. Or it doesn't happen. It's that simple. Says, there's gonna be a transition between old world and new world. The piece that's missing is an empowered humanity, and that's the part we all need to catch up on. Is empowering humanity. We need to take the lead. When the power vacuum collapses, we don't want the military to be in there. We want it to be us, the people of the planet, to fill that vacuum. This way we will watch out for each other. And I don't know, I know there's people around the world. We have someone running for governor of Idaho, Eamon Bundy. I have to look more into that, but I know like he was the one, if you know, several years ago, like he had issues with Land Management Bureau on his property. There was a stand, there was a huge thing going on. Um, anyway, he has an ad that basically he doesn't really like Californians coming in here to Idaho. And if they want to whine and cry about the way Idaho is, that we will move them back to California. That's a little aggressive, I think, but I do like the fact that he says that there will be no property tax, no income tax, and no grocery tax. So when I saw that, I was like, that kind of sounds a little like Nasara. Interesting. So we'll see. Um, Next question. Many are saying the EBS and the 10-day lockdown are coming at the end of October, which of course didn't happen. This is old news, but I'm going to read it anyway. At which time everything is going to be revealed to humanity. My question is, will they actually divulge everything from Satanism to child trafficking, to the on and off world beings all around us? And once this has happened, is that truly going to change everything from that point on for humanity? And Alex says, I don't think anybody knows how specifically they're going to roll it out, and they're not going to tip their hand until they're ready to do it or they're implementing it. Then it will be obvious they're implementing it. Do I know whether the end of October they're going to be implementing it? Again, these are all event-based items, and they're not going to tip their hand because there's still some cabal left. He says there is, and some of them are quite dangerous. So I don't know. Will they tell us everything? I think it's going to come in stages because it's going to be overwhelming for a lot of people. It's going to be overwhelming. They're going to see their world as they know it completely crumble, and they're going to shit themselves because they're going to have no idea what to do because they haven't been paying attention, and their whole identity was based on this matrix. In other words, who they thought themselves to be was literally a false persona, and that hit home until they come to the moment and realize that false persona no longer has a place in the world. So they're going to have their own dark nights of the soul where all their false beliefs about everything collapse, and they will come to the realization it's just them and it's just God. And when he said that, I kind of thought, what, I wonder if that's going to be suicide weekend that letter 17 talks about. Is that going to be suicide weekend? Because so many people aren't going to be able to handle it. They're going to like take their own lives. Something to think about. He says, and those are tough moments, and we should be empathetic about that as long as they don't do something stupid. But that's going to happen. He says it's going to happen. And it has to happen because when you get through the dark night of the soul, it's just you. You have dumped all the garbage, all the false beliefs, all of the self judgments, all the things that you now know weren't true. You just let them go. And basically, now you're moldable clay, but you're the one who's going to mold the clay. It says, it isn't going to be society that was designed to trigger, to manipulate, to control you, and the way you thought and saw yourself. What's going to happen after this collapse, and these folks go through their own dark night of the soul, is on the other side of that, you will have genuine, authentic human being once again, maybe for the first time for some of them. It's an exciting time. It really is. And when somebody gets to their authenticity, miracles happen. Who they truly are begins to come out. Their creativity, their generosity, their disposition. He says, they can make such a contribution at that point because they're not operating from a persona of ego. That's why that's there. Dark nights of the soul are there is to reset those who need it because source cares. That's why all these resets are built into the system, into the holograph, this Vidya, as the A's call it, so that you always have an opportunity to come back to center. Next question. Assuming our reality is a holographic interface for our consciousness to evolve, can you explain from where our consciousness is projecting? Are we all projecting from source, other planets and motherships? Thank you. Alex says, well, all dimensions or densities were created by source. So source's frequency is everywhere. It is my belief that the information that was uncovered by Project Blue Brain, he says it's interesting that they always use blue, isn't it? That blue brain in Switzerland uncovered about the multidimensional structures in one's brain that are already present. And the first 1,500 people they did this testing on, they saw fourth and fifth, all the way up to 11th. And they were they were operating, I believe that whatever structure you're operating from, whether it's 7th, 10th, or 11th, that this is the source from which you're operating from. Because nature doesn't create something it doesn't need or doesn't use. So I'm going to use you as an example. And he laughs. He says, you're operating from 11th density, and that's the structure in your brain is 11th density. Why would that be on if you weren't operating from that space? Why wouldn't it be 7th or 8th or 9th? And why would those particular structures not be in your brain? Why would it just be 11? It wouldn't make sense. That's where you're operating from because you don't have the others. If you had 5 and not the rest, I'd say you'd be operating from the 5th. It's only logical to think that. They did not see structures all the way to 11th in one's brain. They saw specific dimensional structures. Specific, and they were turned on. That would imply that. That was your point of origin. Okay, next question. The shitbirds have been using frequencies on humanity. Says, have the white hats gotten control over these devices? When will the AI pilot spraying chemtrails be destroyed? And Alex answers, I don't know. I don't know why that operation continues or why it has been allowed to continue. I don't have all the answers. I wish I did. These webinars would be a lot better if I had all the answers. Laughs. But I don't. I simply do not know. We were talking about Covfefe earlier. JP asked about it, and I explained it's a series of alloy magnets that are being attached to 5G towers, and that it does what it does is it converts the microwave frequency to something that is not harmful to humanity, and that process still continues as we speak. That's being done by the military, just so you know. It says they're doing that, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but 87,000 National Guard troops have been converted to marshals. See, just so you know, okay? Said many of them are working with this as well because they use a lot of radionics and microwave communication in the military. So they're very, very good at this. They understand the science quite well. because it's something they do all the time and it's happening. It is, in fact, happening. There's information coming out now. As you remember the early pictures of Wuhan of people dropping dead, fact check that, because yes, there's videos of people dropping dead, okay, in the streets, and there were thousands of people who dropped dead. Says, well, it wasn't because of the fake virus, it was because they turned on 5G, and it only happened when Wuhan proper, it's the only place they turned it on in China. They didn't turn it on the outside, the countryside. It was only in the city, and they turned on the 5G towers, and thousands of people dropped dead. So I hear people all the same say 5G is turned on here. He says, ladies and gentlemen, it is my understanding that not a single 5G tower has been turned on. That doesn't have the covfefe magnets on it. If it doesn't have the covfefe magnets on it, it has not been turned on. It doesn't matter that your phone says 5G. They all say 5G. Doesn't mean it's 5G microwave. It just means that you're getting a signal from a 5G tower, but it is not a microwave, which is what the towers are set up to do. This is what I was saying to you earlier, that the cabal, the deep state, they clearly put in motion what they intended to do to us. There is no question about it. They don't get a pass at all. They go down for it. They have to, so that future generations know you do not ever attempt to do anything like this again, ever, or you go down for it. That message has to be loud and clear, and it has to be heard from one end of the solar system, he says, to the other. And that's how I see it, he says. And I'm going to repeat and say what they're spraying in these skies. And I told a friend of mine, I've said it before, and this was many years ago, and I've seen things on other people's Telegram postings that what they are spraying is actually helping heal now. Because why would they ever allow these idiots to keep spraying our skies and harming us and the land, the earth? Why? I don't think they would. So I think I'm pretty sure they're spraying things to help. And because we have been so bombarded with the poisons in our food, in our land, in our medicines, everything, I think we're having a detox effect. So when you say you feel like crap when they're spraying, I think it's because you're feeling a detox effect. I really do. Think about that. Look up how people detox. It makes you feel like shit. It really does. It says, I was saying to you earlier that the cabal, the deep state, they clearly put into motion. Oh, okay. Wait. I did that one. Yeah. Sorry. Already got that. Okay. Next question. Is it accurate to say that the executive order by Trump caused the military to be in control in the background once they confirmed interference in the 2020 elections? Is that true? If true, then all subsequent events have been allowed in order to reveal to the public the true agenda of those who seek a tyrannical level of control. Thank you. And Alex says, you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. Says it was the Insurrection Act. Yes, he did. And he kind of chuckles and he says, that's exactly right. They needed everybody to see this. They did. One of the things they were most worried about was a civil war. If a civil war started in this country, there'd be no way to stop it. You would end up killing each other. And if the United Nations or the Chinese, Europeans brought troops in, he says they would all die as well. It would be an absolute bloodbath, he said. So they chose to do it this way using AI, gaming computers, to find out what was the best way to do this. They put in different scenarios, multiple scenarios. He says they did this over and over and over again. And it was the best to do it this way in order for all of the majority of people would wake up to the control and manipulation of the matrix system that we are all living under. It says the biggest culprit, he says the group that carries the most guilt and has the highest level of betrayal, unimaginable, besides the doctors and the pharmaceutical companies and the government, he says, is the fucking media. Okay. The First Amendment freedom of the press was the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights. And it was there to protect the people from government. And what did the media do? They fucking sold out to the goddamn government and they betrayed everybody, including their own, for money. He says, for money. They sold out everybody, including their own, for money. Off with their heads, he says. Yeah, you're right. He was really passionate about that one. Yeah. Next question. Where do you see humanity 5 years from now? Thank you for all you do. Alex says, great question. 5 years from now, I see America standing on its own 2 feet again. We're still rebuilding, we're still regrouping. However, schools are open. We have an economy. Everybody's back to work. We have a solid asset-backed currency. Our militaries are protecting our borders. Corporations or small businesses are being funded to build new technologies and are components for new technologies. He says, I see the United States once again being the leader in technology and building these products for the rest of the world. I see America energy independent again. I see a great something. I couldn't understand what he said, in normalcy. And a country that is truly just coming into its own, like maybe for the first time, truly coming into its own. We have a direction, we have a purpose, we understand what that is. We are all fully aware of the mistakes that were made and the crimes against humanity by a government that no longer exists, and we are very, very aware of that. And our interactions with other countries and other nations are being dealt with on a much higher level, more integrity than we've ever had. And for that reason, we are building trust with the rest of the world. The reason so many brilliant people came to the United States was because of the financial opportunity, but also the idea, no matter who you were or what your name was, it didn't matter who your family was. If you came over here and you worked hard, you could truly make something of yourself. The sky was the limit. It didn't matter anything else except your integrity and your work ethic and the fact that you could actually come over here and own a piece of property. See? Something that you could build and leave a legacy for future generations, which is something you couldn't do in Europe and Asia. You couldn't do that either, and many other parts of the world. You simply couldn't do that. But America was all about property ownership as well. And the fact you could pick up your family and move anywhere you wanted to virtually any time for whatever reason. And we had a Bill of Rights. We had protected rights as citizens that our government agreed to protect and to honor. All that went to hell, he says, with the Patriot Act. When they passed the Patriot Act on red, he says, by the way, all that shit went to hell. He says that was the first marker that we were headed down towards tyranny, and many people in the intelligence agencies and the military, especially the white hats, took note of that. They did. He says veterans, they took note of that. That was the first sign we were oh no. He says, oh no. And it continued down that path. So what's going to happen is when we fire virtually everyone in Congress, which is the old corporation, we hold elections within the next year or two for a brand new Congress for the Republic of the United States of America. I bet thousands of dollars that there's not ever going to be a single bill passed without everybody reading it or having time to read it. It just can't happen. That kind of behavior simply cannot ever be allowed ever, ever again. Because these knuckleheads, he says, they were compromised, which is why they voted for something they couldn't even read. And in so passing it, they compromised not only themselves, but their own families. He says, who does that? Who does that? It's just unconscionable, unconsciousnessable. I can't, oh my God, I can't say that word. Um, that you would sell your own into slavery. They had to be compromised. No one's that fucking stupid. So they were compromised. We can't allow that ever, ever again. There should be no PACs, no political action committees, none of that. We have to change things a lot. We really do. We have to protect ourselves, and we're running the show. We will protect each other because in protecting each other, we will remain free. Okay, and then there was another question, and I didn't write it all down, but it was a question. If you watched, Dr. Michael Salla had an Exopolitics YouTube. He had an interview with JP, and they were talking about the Florida underground where he went. And Alex says, I know about the ant people. He says they have a very large underground city in Arizona. Several entrances. Excuse me. I'm going to highlight that. Several entrances are in locations of the Grand Canyon. I know about the ant people. They're benevolent. The Native Americans are more likely to trust them than the white man. And I get that also. I do. So that's why they've been left alone. Now, are they going to have to leave? I don't know. Because do all the extraterrestrials have to leave the planet? Says, does that still apply? So many things have been changing. We're just going to have to see. But I'm well aware of the ant people. And I was surprised it was underground in Florida, though. That was an interesting piece, he says. But since we're talking about JP and the others, I have a question for JP or Dr. Salla, if you're on here today. He says, Michael, how come no one is talking about the 1,500-mile arc that's in Greenland? Says, I mean, it's not a mountain range, it's an arc that's covered with snow. How come no one's talking about that? How come that one isn't turned on yet? Why don't you get back to me on that, okay? He says, and I knew the crew that used to fly that ship. He says, they're friends of mine. That little piece on this whole webinar kind of blew my mind. I'll have to look more into that. Next question. Maritime law versus going common law. And Alex says, under maritime law, you and I don't exist. I'm already dead. So are you. We're just figments of our imagination legally. We're the property of the Vatican. A trust. We're the property of a trust. He says, enough of this shit. He says, it's nuts. So yeah, I'm all down for common law. Absolutely. Next question. If we have DNA from 22 or more different star nations, how do you know which one your soul family is from? I strongly resonate with 4 different star nations. So does that mean I have 4 different soul groups or soul families, thank you for continuing to give up your time and energy for the benefit of all. And Alex says, you're welcome. And yeah, that's probably exactly what it means. He says, I'm connected to several soul groups. I think we all are. I mean, we're all system busters. We're all in our dimensions and we're all looking for cause, for an opportunity to go in somewhere and bust up the system so that the souls can be free. We're like spiritual special forces, and that's what we do. We go in and overthrow tyrannical planetary governments. Yes. Aren't we? Yes, we are, soul family. We do. Especially those that, well, I know for me, one of my hot buttons, he says, is to go in and overthrow anything that the Orion Empire has control of. I mean, I'm usually down for those. He says, I mean, they're assholes. They have been assholes. The things that they have done to planetary civilizations and evolving civilizations, he said, oh my God. He says, but many of the people within the Orion system are enslaved themselves. Many of the warriors, he says, they have are conscripted into service. And if they don't agree, their families are killed. I mean, it's just, he says, it's dark. It's really dark. And yet, some of the oldest and wisest civilizations come from Orion. And yet, the seat of darkness is there. And it's just, he says, it's just so dark. It's almost become its own black hole. And you got to wonder, what are these beings thinking to be this dark? Maybe in a lot of ways, I'm just still completely naive, but I just cannot wrap my head around that. I can't. He says, but it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And that's why I volunteer. Earth was a tougher assignment, he says, than I thought it would be. I have to own that. He says, there must have been a part of me that thought, oh, we can do this. This will be a walk in the park, or maybe a walk, not necessarily in a park, he says, but a walk. He says, and I was wrong. And he laughs. He says, I got my ass kicked here. He says, shit. Says so, but things have turned. They've absolutely turned, and the future is nothing but bright. It really is. And I couldn't be happier for everyone here. Just keep it going. Keep filling the planet with light. Keep blessing everyone around you. Just the intention of a blessing fills them with light, whether they hold onto it or not. That's on them. But you want, he says, we all want to keep filling this space with light and pushing the darkness away. No matter where you are, bless it. You walk into a room, a restaurant, he says, bless it. A pharmacy, he said, bless it. He said, you know, I bless this space, is what you say. The gas station, I bless this space. The dry cleaners, I bless this space. The IRS office, he says, you better bless it twice. Your bank, yeah, I bless this space and my money. I do that and all the time, he says. I hear a fire engine. I bless everyone involved. And I'm surprised he says that because I do that too. And I years ago I heard someone say that, and I must have read it somewhere maybe. I don't remember, but yeah, like when I hear a siren and I know maybe there's been an accident and someone's been hurt, I send light their way so that they're okay or they need to go where they need to go, you know. So I'm surprised he does the same thing. Um, yeah, he says, I blessed everyone involved. Whatever happens, may it be for the highest good. He says, and I learned that from some friends of mine in Boulder. That's where I first learned to do this or even think about it many, many years ago. It works. It really, really does work. And by doing that, you shift the energy in that space. He says, you do. You switch it just like that. And I would rather be in a place of light than grunge. He says, happiness, not disappointment with grumpy people. He says, you'd be surprised how quickly a person's disposition will change when you do that. It's amazing. Next question. What do you know of the real Lilith and her history? The inverted 3D story demonizes her due to her disobedience to Adam. Who was she really? A woman with consciousness who went against the patriarchy that was set in motion by the Anunnaki? I read about that a long time ago too, that Lilith was actually the first Eve that was created for man, and because she didn't want to do what man said, or be subservient to man, that she went off on her own. Um, and then Eve came in. So that's my take on it. Which I don't know how that's a bad thing, because you're supposed to be equal. You shouldn't be subservient to man, right? You shouldn't be subservient to anyone. But now, like, everything you see with Lilith is she's the mother of demons. She's awful. She's horrible. We won't know the real truth until all of it comes out. Like, none of us knows the real truth about it, right? Because everything's been twisted. But Alex says this. He says, I'm an absolute blank on that. He says, if you're referring to Adam and Eve, he says, if you're referring to that, I don't believe that story at all. I simply don't. The story about Adam and Eve and the serpent and one each, he says, I don't believe any of that story. If you remember, the original books were compiled, and they were stories and legends that were not only written by the Sumerians, but the Chaldeans, the Phoenicians, and others in Hebrew writers. The Ibri writers compiled these things, and they wrote themselves into the story. And if you look at certain sects of the Hebrew religion that refer to everyone who isn't a Hebrew, is a Goyim, and how we're worthless and we're just animals. He says, if you understand all that, he says, you have to ask yourself, why would I take any of this seriously? I'm not an animal. I don't expect to be treated like an animal, and I won't have anyone assume that I am. And yet these people to this day think that way. So without knowing anything else regarding Lilith, if it fits anywhere to that narrative, I wouldn't take it seriously. I simply wouldn't. And the patriarchy and the religious sects of the Hebrew groups, he says, the patriarchy there is very, very ancient, and it's completely outdated and extremely narcissistic, in my humble opinion. He says, now, I'm sure behind closed doors, those women have their say. They have their say. Anyone that's been married knows when the door's closed, y'all have your say. So I'm sure they get an earful that their customs cause them to remain silent most of the time. So all that's changed. All that's changed. All that's going to change. The feminine principle is coming, is regaining its authority. It is becoming more prominent than the male, and it will be for a little while until things balance out. And it's welcome. It's absolutely welcome. When the warrior is out of balance, terrible things happen. When it's grounded and centered and in harmony with the feminine, the families survive and they grow and are healthy, which means societies are healthy and grow. And that's what we need. And is why all of this is happening. There are no accidents here, okay? The universe, source, creator has clearly stepped in and said, okay, this is happening. And that's what's happening. And you ride the tide, you ride the river to where it takes us. If you fight it, you may drown, but your bodies are still going down the river. because Source wills it. And at some point, if you're fighting it, you're going to find yourself standing down the river on the shore in the sun, and the sun is shining, and everything's okay. Everything's good. And what's happened is if you've changed your place within yourself and you are better now for the experience. I was going to say something and I totally forgot. And who doesn't want to be better? He says. Next question. When the Anunnaki were genetically creating their human worker race, where were they pulling soul consciousness from to animate the humans? And Alex says, that's an excellent question. And it might surprise you to know that the original versions, I'm told, were not going to hold consciousness. They didn't expect it. The souls that ended up attaching to the hybrid human Terrans, as we are ourselves, came to be, was quite a shock, I'm told, to the Anunnaki, and they didn't anticipate this. They were just, mind you, I wasn't there, he says, but Visaya said they were absolutely shocked with the quality of soul that was attaching to the physical form, which is why we excelled so quickly um, to become that, he says, which is why the patriarchy of the Anunnaki freaked, he says, because they anticipated that within 1,000 years we would surpass them. And he laughs. And he says their workers would surpass them, which is why they set out to turn off our third strand. Now I know there are other pieces of this. He says this experience that I don't have. He says the soul entrapment piece to keep us looping back in and out where that technology came from. He says the A's would only say it came from Aldebaran. So basically, our reincarnation had to do with Orion technology. And the majority of the beings that are in Aldebaran came from another star system that are known as the Sisters. And he says, I've not wanted to go down that road because there are a lot of people here who are clearly connected to the P's. And I think the P's, the Palladians, I guess, are really trying to do the right thing here and fix this. They're evolving just like all of us. And at this point, we need to know the truth about everything. But we can't get stuck in the blame game. None of that matters anymore. It really doesn't. What matters is what we do with our civilization moving forward from this point on, okay? It'd be very easy to get stuck in the blame and then the anger and frustration and yada, 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 says. But is that empowering anybody? We acknowledge it. We call them out and then we move on because that's what we need to do. We need to move on. And 7,000 years ago, if we were going to surpass them in 1,000 years, he says, well, we got 6,000 years to catch up on as soon as possible. And personally, that's where my focus is for whatever time I still have left here, he says, is to move us towards that goal. If we were going to surpass them, then, well, let's just get on with it. He says, let's surpass them. Let's just do it. If you carry the past with you, you're always stuck in the past. Again, he says, if you carry the past with you, you're always stuck in the past. And our future is not behind us, it's in front of us. It says, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I know we have a question and answer coming up next week. Then I'm off to my big adventure. I just want to say on behalf of myself, JP, and James, we appreciate your support. This would not happen without you. I know we're extremely biased, but we think you guys are the absolute best. And it's going to be fun. We've just got some bumps and growing pains, but it's going to be fun. It really is. We're all going to get a chance to roll up our sleeves
and do our thing and be appreciated for it. Imagine that. He says, I love you. The boys love you, and we will see you next week. God bless. Okay, so that was the end. That was a long one. Okay, so, and I want to tell you, I watched a video and it was it kind of, I had such an open mind to it too. And I watched, it was on a Quantum Truth, JCK, and she did an interview with Kelly and Campbell from Tartaria. Uh, and they talked about uh, basically really like us being in the Matrix. It's a great video. You need to go back and watch it. It was just from a couple weeks ago. So they were talking about basically us being in pods, and she actually had this like astral travel, and she remembers waking up out of this pod in this medical facility, and basically like her higher self was on this ship, and like maybe we're just all in these pods like the Matrix, actual Matrix movie. Maybe we're all in these pods. We came in here to rescue humanity. Okay, but the way they explained it is just, it kind of opened my mind, and I was like, oh my god, that might be right. Because um, Yellow Rose for Texas, on her YouTube channel, she talks about her having this dream, or this vision of her waking up from a medical bed, and there were medical people around her. So, JC has a vision of that. Yellow Rose for Texas had a vision of that. And then I was thinking, it just triggered when my mother died. The morning my mother died, I actually like saw just a vision of her hand. I just saw her hand. Like I knew it was her hand. Like she was looking at her hand, but I was seeing it through my eyes. And JCK talks about like looking at her hands. And when she said that, it just kind of triggered that for me, that vision I had. And I'm like, oh my God, maybe we really are. And that's why I had that dream, that lucid dream where I was with my mother in a medical facility. This was a month or two ago, and I was filling out paperwork, and she was waiting for me in the other room, and I knew I was going to have to go through this procedure. So maybe it's all true, and maybe we're just all in these pods and we're in the game. It's just like what's that one? Ready Player One, where you're in this virtual reality. I still have a hard time like accepting we're in this holographic type of reality. But the more like people talk about it and the more your mind opens to it, you're like, oh man. And then the visions or the dreams that you have kind of validate it. And you're like, crap, maybe we are. Maybe we're just our higher selves on the outside at some point. Like Earth got hijacked, and we're like, we're gonna go in, and we're gonna go in as warriors, and we're gonna fucking save everybody. Like this is bullshit. Like we're getting them out. So yeah, it's a good video if you go back and watch it on her channel. Um, so I just wanted to let you know about that. Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of you are having problems with monetary things. One judicial thing got settled for me, but I'm still kind of working on our house thing, house issues, and then my credit card thing, which is weird because they sent me a letter. Even though I have a judgment, they sent me a letter saying, please call us if this is going to cause you hardship to pay us back, and we'll set up arrangements. And I thought, that's kind of weird because once I contact them and make payment arrangements, even though I don't have a contract with them, like, should I do it or should I not? Because I'm afraid if I don't, they're going to garnish my wages no matter what because they're fucking crooked. Capital One bastards. Uh, yeah, so I just thought it was weird. I get a letter saying, if this is going to cause you hardships to pay us back, please call us. I don't know. Like,
Anyway, and then, and then, okay, our homeowners and our car insurance, like probably 3 years ago, I only paid like $132 for all of it. Within the last 2 years, it kept increasing, but literally, yeah, it went from 132, and then over the last 6 months, it went up to $288. And then last month, I got an a letter from them saying it was going to go up to $315. And then I just got a memo saying my new deduction, because something under homeowners, and I've never made claims, okay, has gone up another $161. So now my car insurance and my homeowners insurance is about $475 a month. Are you fucking kidding me? Really? Are you serious? That is highway robbery. Highway robbery. We used to have MetLife because we got some kind of a discount somehow, and then they got bought out by farmers. So I need to find somebody local to help me with that. But yeah, so that is ridiculous. And when I called the 1-800 number, they told me it was because of inflation. I'm sorry, how do you have inflation on your homeowner's insurance? They're going to make up some excuse that, oh, because the rates on homes are higher, the prices on homes are higher, and everything is higher if we have to rebuild or we have to redo it. It's all inflation. Bullshit. 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 You are taking my money straight out of my fucking mouth. I'm just, it pisses me off. It just so pisses me off. And I don't know if anybody else has experienced that, but everything, and we do price increases at work too. And I see the price changes and how much, like, a candy bar went from like $1.49 to literally like $1 more now. Like, what the hell? Because the chocolate, because they're stopping all the human trafficking with the poor little kids doing all the cocoa beans. Like, so now we're paying more for like anything chocolate. Yeah. So yeah, this inflation shit has got to stop. Got to stop, because like all my expenses are way more than my income coming in right now. So I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I'm so frustrated. So frustrated with it. So I try not to think about it, and I try to do these videos to get information out to people, and I appreciate you if you've listened to me this far. But I know we're all experiencing the hardships, and it's getting harder, and I'm just uh, I'm kind of praying and just asking Source to please help me and get me through my day. And I try not to think about it so much, and I just keep focusing on the other side when we come out into the light, and everything is going to be so much better, and there's going to be so much abundance. Um, that's what I'm focused on. So I love all of you. Thank you so much for watching, and please support Alex Collier. Go to his channel or his website, alexcollier.org, or he's on brighteon.com under Alex Collier Official 2. Please go and support him. And I just wanted to say a quick last note. I was feeling really down, like I said, around that time of the conference, because I felt so bad that I couldn't go and I didn't have the money at all to go. And I so wanted to be with those people. And I know a lot of you probably did too. And we just didn't have the opportunity to go. Um, and I just wanted to tell you, like, you're not alone. You are not alone in the world. We know that we are like the light that has to shine in certain places that we live, and it's really, really tough. It's really tough being by yourself and not having anybody else you can talk to.
And I just wanted to let you all know I love you. You are soul family, and um, you're not alone. You are not alone. Okay. So hang in there and just take it day by day. That's the only thing we can do at this point. So I love all of you. Thank you so much. I want to give all of you a great big hug, and hopefully I can get another video done. It may not be this week, so maybe sometime next week we'll do the 14th of October. So I love all of you. Thank you so much. Bye. We'll see you next time. Bye.